our next model is from Cambodia, developed by international organization CARE, with its experience of bringing the global knowledge at the local level. The presenter is Mr. Noorlander, Program Director, CARE Cambodia. Noorlander has been working in the field of education for last 25 years. He has been last 15 years working experience in Cambodia, and he started with the Highland Children's Education Project, where education complements with water sanitation, hygiene, climate change, social accountability, food security, multidimensional program. He is now responsible for ethnic minority project of CARE Indonesia. This CARE model will show us on access to quality education by girl children in indigenous community of Cambodia. Ian, floor to you.
Thank you very much. Yesterday I was listening to Tara Hill of the Center for Education Innovation, and she made some comments about what are trends in NGOs that have been able to scale up significantly. And one of the things she said is partnership. That's the first slide, because CARE is not part of the consortium, Cambodian Consortium of Out-of-School Children. And yesterday there was a presentation by that consortium, and they are funded by Educate a Child. And I mention them because they are part of expanding the program. Another thing that she said that was interesting and really rang true for our work in CARE is that it takes a long time if you really want to embed a thorough change in a government system. And she mentioned the Kurusat Tamai NGO that is now celebrating 25 years of service to Cambodian children, and they are now being taken over by the government, which is a great feat for sustainability. And CARE recognizes that very much, because we have been working on this program for 14 years now. And we take at least 2 more years for the final handover to the ministry. If I say partners, there's more partners than these. In the 14 years, we have had several donors, and I will mention them later, but I want to certainly mention Australian Aid, AusAid at that time, because they actually initiated the project as a pilot project in 2002. So just to introduce CARE, CARE started just after the Second World War through the United States, and they were supporting or flanking the Marshall Plan that was aiming to rebuild the devastated European countries. But they saw that also direct help in food and non-food items were needed, and that's why they established this organization. And CARE is no longer used as an acronym, but it stands for, at that time it stood for Cooperative Assistance for the Relief of Europe. Later, they moved their activities mainly to Africa and then to Asia and Latin America, and it changed to, Europe changed to everywhere. But now we just refer to as CARE. We work in 90 countries, well actually last year 95 countries, and you can see here where we concentrate. And we work in different kinds of sectors. We're now moving work away from only working in sectors, but we're working with impact groups, and I'm directing the program for ethnic minority women in Cambodia. CARE has a long history in Cambodia. We moved into Cambodia in 1973 in the midst of a civil war that was happening at that time. 2 years later, the Khmer Rouge regime took over, and CARE moved to the Thai border camps where we worked. And it took a long time for CARE to start moving back into Phnom Penh, only after the peace accords in Paris in the early 90s. And I mention this because so many older Cambodians actually were repatriated by CARE. So CARE, for many people, also in the Ministry of Education, is a very well-known organization, and it's a trusted organization by the government. And that is very that came in very handy when we were doing work that was a bit controversial. That was bilingual education. So we have two main programs. One is centered around young women and girls who move to Phnom Penh, mainly to work in the garment industry or the entertainment industry. Rural women that have multiple rights denied, and a program for ethnic minority women who have many rights denied. So this is part of a quite comprehensive program, including climate change, resilience, and disaster risk reduction, food security, but it has a strong education component, and we started in education. And these are the things that we are doing in this education program for ethnic minority girls and boys. The multilingual education program that I will go to focus on later. Effective school support committees is a program supported by the EU, where we build the capacity of school support committees. Making teachers sensitive to the needs of indigenous students, especially girls, not only in preschool but also in secondary school. Improved wash facilities. Making community action plans so that the girls' workload will be reduced. Scholarships and girls' leadership training. These are programs that are going through preschool, primary school, and lower secondary school. But my presentation is going to focus on one part of it, and that's the multilingual education program. So in 2002, we started this program, and we took a year to prepare it and to train staff and get our first relations solid with the communities to start with, then with the local government, and then with the national government. And we took a lot of time in that, and there was a lot of resistance from local government officials in the beginning, but not at the highest top. The minister was a very strong supporter of the program, and that's what we had to, we needed it very much, and we had to bring him now and then to the provincial level to talk to the provincial officers. The basic model is that communities are taking the lead. So the community members literally build their own simple constructions that were the future schools. We train them in how to manage teachers. We train them in how to select teachers. And CARES team build the capacity of those teachers from those, those communities who started teaching in their own languages. We also looked at the national curriculum and developed a separate curriculum based on the national curriculum. So all the learning outcomes per grade are the same, but we use different books that show the world of indigenous environment, but also the Khmer environment. And that curriculum was based on the national curriculum, but also very thorough consultations with the communities, what they wanted their children to learn. And a very simple example is that they said, please teach our children so they don't get cheated in the market. And you can make books about that. And they are mathematic books, they are social study books, and they are language books in the same book. So this is a conceptual framework. If you look at the teacher, we provide foundation training. And sometimes the teachers are from villages where education is very, very low. The academic levels are sometimes only grade 3. So you need to do a long in-service program as well. We have developed curriculum guides and classroom guides. We made the educational materials. And our team has been provided ongoing support, going to the schools and see if the in-service training was actually applied in the classes. And from the students then learn to begin with in their own language. So not only do they learn Khmer in the later stage, but they also learn to read and write in their own language. And their own language 20 years ago was not even written down. And this is a good moment to mention one of our partners, SIL, and in Cambodia that is in a consortium called ICC, and they have done all the linguistic work, and we work still closely with them in the language committees. So they have separate textbooks from the ministry system, and they receive support from teachers from their own culture, The school is in the village, so the teacher is probably their uncle or their aunt. And they learn the national curriculum. So this is a complicated story, and there's even more complicated version of this, and I'm happy to share them with you, but I'm not going to pay too much attention to them in this presentation because we will go over 6 o'clock, I think. But this is how we start. We start in early childhood, and it's completely in the mother tongue, even the second year, except at the end we start to introduce oral national language, Khmer language. And then in grade 1, only 20% the national language, and that is increased gradually. And then in grade 4, they switch to the national language. But the teachers are still able to support them in their own language if the students don't understand something. Now, the experts, we have at least one of them here in the room, the experts will call this an early exit program. And it is not the most ideal program if you look at scientific research. CARE is fully aware of that. But we had to make a compromise in 2003. It is either we can't do this kind of education, or we compromise that is grade 3, and then everything has to be in Khmer. I have personally been lobbying for the last 10 years to have a different model, and I'm very, very happy that the minister now has decided that we can do a pilot project that takes up from preschool to grade 6 in their own language, plus Khmer language. So very briefly, we start in early childhood in the mother tongue. Then the first 3 grades are a mix of their mother tongue and the Khmer language. Then in grade 4 to 6, all the language of instruction is Khmer, but there's support from the teachers if they don't understand anything in their own language. And then they go to secondary schools, and they should actually be confident enough to be taught only in Khmer, and they have no choice because the teachers are mostly Khmer. But we do have a support program there because we found out once the students moved to secondary school, whole new problems came up. The dropout was gigantic, and we soon realized that there was a lot of discrimination of indigenous students. And the schools were overwhelmed. There's one school that had, I think, something like 20 indigenous students the year before. And then when we sent our graduates, suddenly the school population was 30% indigenous. And we hadn't prepared the teachers well enough for that. So now, and that's still going on, we have a program where we train teachers in cross-cultural work, avoiding discrimination, avoiding stereotyping, and that is quite successful, but there is a teacher turnaround. So you see the teachers go away and new teachers come in with their own new biases. So we are now training the government officials, the education officials at district level, how to train the new teachers. So we can slowly step back. A quick timeline. We started in 2003, we opened the first schools, only 6 as a pilot in 2 languages. And then we had an expansion of the community schools by the ministry because the ministry has been there from the very beginning. We had an MOU in 2002 that said that one of the aims of the MOU is to build the capacity of the ministry so we can hand it over. And we foolishly thought that would be 4 or 5 years. And we're still at it. But we have made great progress, as you can see, because the community schools have now been expanded by the ministry to 4 provinces in the northeast of Cambodia. And we also have started the multilingual education program in state schools. And then in 2011, we had already started our preschool program. The ministry took that model over and are implementing that in 5 provinces. And they have their own core trainers that we have trained before, and they do that quite independently. And we work with PLAN, one of the consortium members, to expand that program. 2013, CARE stepped completely back from the management and the payment of schools, and the government took over the management of those schools. They have given them the budget, the national budget per school. They pay most of the teachers, not all of them. Some are still on our payroll, but we have now a plan to hand over the last 21, I think it's 21 teachers still, and the rest, 150, are on the payroll of the government already. So there's quite an increased ownership of the government. And we had in 2010 a Prakas is a proclamation of the ministry that laid out principles on how bilingual education should be implemented by either NGO or by government institutions. And we then have started work on the approval of a multilingual education plan. That is actually a very big step. And again, we thought that would be a year. It was 2.5 years. 2.5 years of working with government officials to plan better ahead, and not only year by year. And we felt as CARE that was very necessary because we want to hand over everything to the ministry. So we wanted to see what steps had to be taken, who is responsible for what, and this is the key thing always if you do something that is out of mainstream, who's paying for it. And we want the ministry ultimately to pay for this. And they are paying already, as I said, school budgets, the teachers, but they need to start really implementing it completely by themselves. This National Action Plan, SAL and I have been facilitating the process, and it took so long, but we didn't mind because actually so many government officials were involved in writing the plan and thinking about the plan, so really it's their plan. Because this 5 minutes, so I'll rush through. This is a teacher that went through the bilingual program and is now teaching in her own village. So the results are, very quickly, it's linked to the Education Strategic Plan. The proclamation by the MLE gives it the policy framework. The National Action Plan is again linked to the Education Sector Plan. We are working in 80 schools, and if I say we, that's actually a mistake. They are working. It's sometimes hard to let go. So they are working in 4 provinces, and it's 80 schools in primary education, 55 in preschools, and that is now rapidly expanding. And we hope that we will have about 10,000 indigenous students finishing primary education by the end of this National Action Plan, which is a huge increase. For a country like India, it's minimal numbers, I know that, but for Cambodia, where 1.5% of the population is indigenous, it's actually a significant amount of students. So we think that it has been successful because we have not worked parallel to the ministry. We have worked with the ministry from the very beginning, and it has been very successful. Sensitive advocacy strategies, and we actually have developed a plan, so if people are interested in how to build a comprehensive advocacy plan, we're happy to share that. Allowing the government to scale it up themselves and not CARE. And it has been challenging because sometimes other NGOs wanted to jump in and say, CARE is leaving, so we can take it over. And we said, no, please don't do that because the government has to take it over. And don't give money to the government, because the government should put it in their own budgets. And the long-term commitment by partners. UNICEF has been vital in this whole process in institutionalizing it, and we have a very close partnership. Every time we talk about multilingual education in Cambodia in the formal sector, because we only concentrate on the formal sector, UNICEF and CARE go to the ministry together. So we have a very good partnership, and we bring the technical expertise and the grassroots knowledge, and UNICEF has that leverage to bring about the policy changes, etc. I have maybe 1 minute now.
Yes.
Some of the constraints, and it won't surprise you at all, is sometimes the unconscious biases, because 90% of the population in Cambodia is Khmer. So so many people think that that's the norm, and they don't realize how they actually discriminate people. But some actually are very deliberate in their discrimination as well. And I cannot exclude our own organization. And I'm not talking about the teams that work in this program, but I talk about other sectors who are Phnom Penh raised and based people that really find it challenging to work with this, and we have to constantly work on that as well. A lack of understanding of ethnic minority culture and linguistic barriers. The quality, this is a concern, the quality of the replication. The scaling up is going very fast now, but you also see that government officials want to mainstream it and they don't pay enough attention. So that's a concern that we are now working on. And the last one is fitting in innovative strategies in mainstream education. We knew this was going to be a painful process, and it was painful, but you have to make compromises if you want to have a very innovative pilot and making sure the government takes it over and feels complete ownership. You have to make compromises. And one of them is we had complete synchronization of the school calendar and the agricultural calendar, and it really made a significant impact on dropout. When the government took it over, they allowed it, but if the whole EMIS system, that keeps churning on, and you can't expect the whole country's system to change for a small group of schools. So we had to compromise on that. But that discussion is not finished yet, because it will also benefit many, many rural Khmer children. So the lobbying goes on, but we had to give that up. Another very innovative thing was the portfolio assessment, where community members were involved in assessing who was promoted, who had to repeat, and that was too complex for the government officials. I think I'm finished. Okay, I really want to show this as well, not because I want to please the donors, but if you realize you have to do a long program and there's a long-term commitment, you need to find long-term donors. And that is not always easy. And we have been struggling, but Australian Aid has been very, very good with us, and they still fund certain parts of it. Also the donation of the Australian public. The foundations have been very, very important, especially the ones that, from the US. And Educated Child is now making it possible that we are expanding very rapidly in state schools. Please, if you have more technical questions, we have now quite a well-populated website, and there's a section on multilingual education. It has also the research. We have done longitudinal research. It has lots of details. You see the model in much more detail. So please visit the website, and if you've got any questions, that's my email address. Thank you.
Thank you.